This episode is brought to you by FX's The Veil, starring Elizabeth Moss. FX's The Veil is an international spy thriller that follows two women as they play a deadly game of truth and lies on the road from Istanbul to Paris and London. One woman has a secret, and the other has a mission to reveal it before thousands of lives are lost. FX's The Veil, now streaming, only on Hulu.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Matt.
So we're back in Newport Beach, and I got to tell you that when I hit play on this episode and we got the previously on, I had to check to make sure I had the right episode on because the entire previously segment is all like season 2 shit.
Yeah.
Which I quickly took as, oh, great, we're probably going to get some Trey stuff in this one. But we only sort of got some Trey stuff in this one. I really thought that we were going to get a reappearance of the man himself.
I know. I wanted to see more of Logan Marshall Green, right? Is that his name?
Listen, you would know better than me, sir.
Yeah.
For a multitude of reasons.
Yes, for many, many reasons. But I think it's Logan. I'm pretty sure it's Logan Marshall Green.
I mean, I'm not sad he's not here, but I really that was what my takeaway was. I wasn't expecting this to turn into Jess being here.
What? Why? Also, like a bizarro
Listen, Joe,
Jess.
The question why is a question that you can ask throughout most of this season so far. I don't feel confident to say that this was the dumbest subplot of this entire season because boy are there a lot of those.
There have been some dummies, yeah.
But this was another what are we doing? Like every single thing that happened this episode, I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we here? Like what is any of this? What does any of this have to do with anything? But this Jess subplot is awful. Like, we're gonna start at the beginning, don't worry, listeners, but I just gotta put that out there right now that this is one of my least favorite subplots that I've had in all of the OC, and I'm glad that it seems to just be a one and done episode subplot. But I'm just like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why is any of this happening?
What is the point? What is the point? What is the point?
Yes. I feel like I'm gonna fall in the same category as I think you and Matt DiStefano, where I might also end up being a season 4 apologist because I can't imagine a world where season 4 is worse than what we're sitting through right now.
I mean, there is a reason why 4 is not it goes 2, 1, 4, 3 for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, remains to be seen. Remains to be seen because we haven't finished the episode. We haven't finished the season yet. So when you see how this season ends and how they try to wrap this shit up with a bow, then you can decide whether or not you have any high hopes for 4.
I mean, I don't have high hopes for nothing. Like that's the thing. I'm going in with my hopes are in the basement when it comes to the OC for the most part. So it's not like it can disappoint me. It can only be worse than my expectations. And that's been season 3. Season 2, there were so many episodes where I thought, oh man, I might be becoming a fan of this show. And season 3 is completely like
takes that all away from you.
Takes it all away. Like I could see myself maybe rewatching seasons 1 and 2, but I do not see a world where I ever feel a drive to be like, I need to remind myself what happened in seasons 3 and 4 of the OC. Well, I don't know. I might walk away being like, season 4 is the season I'm going to watch the most. Like, who the hell knows? But it's certainly not season 3. That is what I'm trying to get at.
I definitely love the finale of the series.
You said that. You said that the finale, they hit it out of the park, really.
Yeah. To me, I mean, again, I don't know. We'll see upon this rewatch how I feel about that. But I got to tell you, like, it reminded me it's going to be such a fucking slog to get through these next few episodes. I was tempted to like watch past what we were going to record today just because I want to get it out of the way.
I mean, listen, there were 3 points while watching these episodes where I just looked at my schedule for us and breathed a deep breath and did the quick count and said, okay, we only have to do 3 more weeks and then we're out of season 3 at this pace. Like, and it's not because I don't want to see your lovely face, Joe. I love seeing your lovely face, but
I'm done with this fucking season right now.
This has become homework.
Kill her and let's move on with our lives.
I'm like, this feels like homework right now. Like it doesn't. I'm not having fun with it, which is so funny because we got that one review towards the end of season 2 that's like, I'm just ready for Matt Kelly to embrace that he loves this show, and it's like, man, I wish you had written that during the end of season 1 because I did really start to embrace the show, but whew, that's all I can say. So let's dive into what I have written down notes wise.
Okay.
The basic stuff that we hit based on the notes that I'm reading here is we got the beginning of the board no longer wants Matt involved in any of their projects because Matt is unhinged as hell. We have the Seth and Summer storyline, which is that Seth no longer knows how to spice things up for him in Summer, so he just instead makes her watch the Blade trilogy. The
most unsexy trilogy.
Boy, I mean, Back to the Future would get you hotter. At least it's got Dr. Everett Scott in it.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Sadie, Jess, Ryan, Marissa, Volchek, like hodgepodge of things happening. I'll just say the general relationship drama of that whole situation. Primarily in this episode, it's that Trey's ex-girlfriend, Jess, shows back up. She's trying to do better. Sadie is like, why is this girl here? Which is a reasonable question. And the note that I wrote is, man, Ryan just can't help but white savior himself into more drama and losing any chance for a normal girl to want to interact with him. And like, that is this episode. That's why I got so frustrated at this episode. Because it's like, what do you care? Like the thing is, and the thing that people tend to forget is I am very pro forgiving people. Right? Like, yes. Like I'm a person that's like, if you're holding on to a grudge 9 times out of 10, you are hurting yourself more than you're hurting the person that that grudge is with. And like, it's better to like forgive and move on. Move on does not mean you bestie up with the person that hurt you. It just means that you're like, I'm not letting this have power over me anymore. I don't hate you. If we end up in the same place, I don't feel like I have to ignore your existence any further. But it's not like, now let's be best friends. You can call on me anytime. Let's hang out. Like, Ryan's relationship with Jess was like non-fucking existent all of season 2. So like none of this makes sense. He should just be like, go away. You're not the right person, and have no, like, Ryan, this is coming from me. I am a human being that people would say this about, and I'm sitting here saying, Ryan, you don't have to save fucking everybody. Like, you don't. It's so exhausting to watch anymore. Yeah.
And it's like, we're watching people make the same mistakes. We're watching, especially Marissa. Oh my God, Marissa in this episode.
Oh boy, yeah.
And Marissa in these 2 episodes, but like making the same mistakes. We're watching the same pattern. It's like the show wanted to remind us how shitty everyone was in seasons 1 and 2, right? Like, it's like, hey, by the way, remember how they all grew? Well, what if they didn't? What if like they didn't like grow?
There's nothing that makes me more frustrated as a television watcher. And all I'm going to say is that this is a big reason why I absolutely hated the final episode of How I Met Your Mother, is when a show does incredible character growth and then sacrifices it for the sake of plot. It is the worst as a fan of any type of anything to have to go through that nonsense and like get invested, cheer them on, and then watch those characters revert to a shittier version of themselves for no other reason than the writers didn't have anything better for them.
Yeah. And that's what that's what reminded me, starting with this episode, it reminded me the kind of journey that we're going to be on with Marissa until the end. And it made me resent the show a little bit, because I'm so curious as to like what the writers were thinking. Like I was thinking about it, and I was like, if there's a conceivable, if it's possible for us to like interview Josh Schwartz, right? It'd be like, hey, so like, why did you guys do that? What were these choices at the end? Because like this show is not supposed to be as bleak and dark as it is. Like you know what I mean? Like that it doesn't feel like there were things, and very serious things, that they were tackling in previous episodes and in like the first 2 seasons that were really heavy, but it didn't feel like drudgery. Like this feels like drudgery.
Well, there's nothing that I hate more. Well, I already said that. But there's another thing that I can't stand in television. And I feel like that's what we're seeing right now. And I'm going to tie it to wrestling a little bit, which is in wrestling, specifically with the WWE and their former owner, Vince McMahon. While this was never explicitly said, longtime viewers noticed a trend. And that trend was, if a wrestler wasn't signing their contract, wasn't like planning to renew their contract, and was probably planning to leave to go to a different federation, that they suddenly lost all the time. And not only did they lose all the time, but they would lose in spectacularly dumb ways, in an almost embarrassing way. And it felt like the thought process was like a final fuck you to that person for having the audacity of wanting to leave, right? We see this in television all the time. It drives me nuts when an actor wants to leave a show and the solution is, well, let's kill the character then.
Yeah.
As opposed to, God forbid, you give that character a nice send-off of like, literally they're graduating high school. Why could Marissa not be like, you know what, guys, I'm going away for college. I'm going to take some time to myself. I'm going to study abroad.
Live with Jimmy and go to UH Manoa. Like,
yeah, you could come up with a million other ways to slowly write Marissa Cooper off of the show that doesn't have to be like she just gives into every negative characteristic that she's had over 3 seasons and dies because of it. Like it's just like so just nihilistic and like frustrating. I will give one compliment to this episode. Side note for my ratings, this is a half a star episode, and this is the half a star that it earned. I do like, they've already done this bit once before, but I like it every time it shows up, is for a show that's not particularly good at show, not tell, having Ryan punch the punching bag while just cutting to very quick pieces of Ryan's past is like one of the better examples of just showing us what Ryan punching that punching bag symbolizes, as opposed to like, this is the type of show where like, I'm shocked that it didn't come up in the conversation with Kirsten. You know what I mean? Where she's also like, oh, you were really going in that punching bag. He's like, well, you know, I think about all the terrible things that happened in my past, and it's the one way that I can really relieve the stress and feel like I'm tethered back to this plane. It's like, that feels like the OC handling the situation. Actually telling those emotions through creative editing is not their normal move. Yeah. So I must applaud that.
I'm glad you like that.
Yeah. Well, I was looking for anything to like. Say.
I'm
Joe,
glad you like that.
Listen, in an episode like this, you got to find something. You got to find something to like. Because you know what I didn't love is why the fuck is Taylor here teaching Seth how to properly fuck. And also just mentioning that it's because she learned it from the dean in the beginning of this season, did not need to know that the dean was rocking the Kama Sutra in their brief relationship. And then why would Seth tell Summer that that's who taught him how to fuck properly? Like,
yeah, because that's exactly what she wanted to hear. She wanted to hear Taylor, who was just her enemy, right? Teaching her
still
boyfriend,
kind of is.
Like, apparently was attracted to Seth. That's the other thing too, right? We forgot about that part.
No, I didn't. But but yes, you're correct. Like this fucking show, dude. It is mind-blowing this season.
Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have anything else, and I got nothing, Joe. This episode sucked. This was a terrible episode of television. Not just the OC. This was bad TV all around. But it had a pretty stacked soundtrack. So we got a couple songs here to talk about. Scissors for Lefty, next to Argyle, plays in our opening scene of the episode when they're playing video games. Brady Servant, Lover I Don't Have to Love, cover of a Bright Eye song, plays like 18 times during this episode. It's like every other music cue. We Are Scientists in Action plays when Ryan's just beating the shit out of that punching bag. The Presets, Girl in the Sea, is playing when they're hanging out in the bait shop. National Trust's It's Just Cruel plays when Jess's friend calls Ryan for help. And Broomhead's Jacket, What Ifs and Maybes, plays when Ryan fights Jess's ex at the party. Part of me wanted to not pick Lover, I Don't Have to Love just because they overplayed it so much. But I mean, that's one of my favorite Bright Eyes songs, and I thought this was a pretty solid cover of an already pretty solid Bright Eyes song, so I had to pick it. But Joe, did you do the same, or did you take a deeper cut on this playlist?
This particular, and I watched the episode today, right? I watched the episode this morning, which is the reason why I'm choosing Phantom Planet's California, because I connected with none of it. Like, connected with none of it.
No, see, the second I heard that opening, I was like, ooh, someone's covering Lover, I Don't Have to Love, and I am here for it. Joe, we've been pretty harsh on this particular episode, but is there anything else that we've been diving into, reading, listening to, etc., that you want to shine a spotlight on and say it's better than episode 18 of season 3 of the OC, The Undertow?
Matt, have I talked about the girls on the bus yet?
You did.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure, because
that was the last thing you talked about. Actually.
Great. Wonderful. All right. I have another one. So everyone keeps talking about X-Men 97, right? I never watched the X-Men cartoon. I didn't like its style back then. And I've been trying to give it I just started it recently, and I'm still not really connecting with it. I'm watching it mainly because I want to get to like whatever episode people are traumatized by. I want to share in the trauma. Mm-hmm. I say all of this to say that this is not my pop culture thing. My pop culture thing is actually it's actually X2 X-Men United.
Okay.
Because I got kind of fed up watching and not connecting with X-Men 97. And so I put on X2, and I was like, man, we really don't make them like this anymore for good reason. We make them better, right?
Yeah.
Like, we really don't make them like this anymore. We make them better. But it's just kind of wild to me that like that movie is almost 20 years old.
Yeah, that's kind of insane. I do have to ask where you are in X-Men 97.
Literally the first episode.
Okay. So, yeah, you got to push through. So the first episode, here's what I'll say. First episode is a lot of fan service for the people who grew up watching
the cartoon.
So it's just like, hey, here's all your like, it's like a giant like, let's get you caught up with everything. Mm-hmm. And then where that episode specifically ends changes the direction of everything else from that point on. The biggest complaint, so as a person who grew up loving that cartoon, my only complaint of X-Men 97, and I've heard a couple other people in the Geekscape network complain about this because we have two Geekscape podcasts talking about it, the Marvel Movie Talk podcast as well as X-Pod 97.
Wow, you really RuPaul'd that shit. You promoted the
Hell yeah, that's what I do. But on the X-Men animated series, they would literally do like a 4 or 5 episode like arc based on like giant famous comic storylines in the X-Men. X-Men 97 knocks a lot of that shit out in single episodes, and you're just like, oh man, like we could have stretched this out for 3 or 4 episodes and like really sunk our teeth in it. But I genuinely think that when you get to the second and third episode, which isn't where the trauma is, the trauma bonding is episode 5. So you have a specific point to look forward to. They really start to like not even be subtle with the like LGBTQ and like minority talk from that point on. And I'm living for it because like in the 90s cartoon, it had to be so much more subtle. And and at this point, they're just like, fuck it. People don't read through the subtlety. We just got to take off the gloves and say exactly what it is.
Is this series cartoon? I feel like insulting people when I say that. Is this series a continuation of the previous one.
Yeah. It literally starts where the last season from the 90s series ended.
So you can choose
okay, so quick potential spoiler. Literally in the final episode of the X-Men series that I watched growing up has someone seemingly assassinating Professor X. X-Men 97 literally picks up a year after that event, and like what the state of the X-Men is now that they don't have Professor X around anymore. Like it is like a direct, like you could literally have called, instead of calling it X-Men 97, you could have literally just called it X-Men the Animated Series Season 6. You know what I mean? Like that's the attitude that they're coming into it with.
So what I thought was interesting is that in that first episode where they are like, they find Trask and they're, doing the thing. They're like, doing the X-Men thing. What I thought was so interesting is that it looked in the beginning of X3, The Last Stand, the scene in X3 where Wolverine and Storm are training the new recruits, like they're training Iceman and, Kitty Pryde and Rogue and Colossus. It's like the same thing that happens, right? It's the same stuff that basically happens in that episode.
Yeah,
which,
it's
I thought was really cool.
It's probably both homage, and I was never the world's strongest comic book reader, so take what I say here with a grain of salt. But I'm imagining that they're probably both also pulling from a similar source material out the gate. In that case, I'm going to have a much shorter pitch here. This was a comic book that I actually did read. Coming hot off the heels of me saying I don't really read comics.
Yeah.
I was listening to a horror podcast, and one of the hosts mentioned this comic that they read that they really liked. Mm-hmm. So I picked up a copy of it called Where Monsters Lie by Kyle Stark. And the comic starts off with 3 boys running from a house, and they're covered in blood. And they run from that house, and they knock on the door of the neighbor, and it's this kindly old lady, and they say that they were kidnapped and put in the basement of this guy's house, where they were forced to solve puzzles in order to survive, and watched many of their friends die around them, but they finally escaped, and that she needs to call the cops right away. And the little old lady pulls out a gun and shoots them in the face. But one of the boys escapes. And what you find out is that this town that they happen to end up in and escape from is where the real life versions of every horror movie character live. So they escaped from the real life Jigsaw's house, but on this same street is like the person who inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the person that inspired Freddy Krueger, and the person that inspired Jason Voorhees. And it's basically, this is like an opening comic. Like I read it, I'm like, oh, this is not a complete story. This is getting you excited to buy more issues, basically. But it's that the boy gets to the police, and the police descend on this town, and the entire graphic novel is basically the war between the police and these superhuman slashers, basically.
Is there
it's
a
a lot of fun
element to it?
There's definitely a walking killer doll. Yes.
I love that.
So it's definitely if you're a horror fan and you're a comic book fan, I mean, I think I got my copy for like $6 on a website that I don't really want to say the name of, but we all know it, and we probably use it on a daily basis for shopping.
Yeah. Temu, got it.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, give it a shot. It's I had a good time. I had a good time with it is all I'll say. And beyond that, Joe, it's important to have a good time with something because
we're not having a good time right now.
Yeah, there was not a good time to be had this week in Newport Beach. But hey, optimistically, maybe it'll be better next week.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.